Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a couple minutes this evening and share my thoughts with you about Ezra Eagle. And, I've long stated that I think that Ezra Eagle has an expiration date. And, I know there's lots of people that say, oh, well, if you read it this way and you read it that way and you interpret this that way, then it could mean this, that, and the other thing. I'm not trying to make Ezra Eagle the zombie prophecy that is neither living nor dead. To me, you read this Ezra Eagle prophecy, it's very clear. And this is why I think that it needs to happen by the 20th. And this is 2nd Ezra chapter 2, verse 11. Or no, sorry, 2nd Ezra chapter 11, and I'm going to start in verse 26. Okay, this is the verse that would start with the 2016 election if you go by the order of feathers. And I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but shortly it appeared no more. Okay, that's verse 26. So this is talking about President Trump, who won the 2016 election, despite the fact that on election night, you had all kinds of pundits coming out and saying that Hillary Clinton had it in the bag and that she had an 80% chance. I remember Nate Silver saying that. And by the end of the night, Trump had won. So then the next verse, verse 27, and the second was away sooner than the first, meaning Biden will be away sooner than Trump is. This is where you get to an expiration date of this has to happen before Trump is sworn in on 2020. Otherwise, Biden is not sooner away than Trump. Now, I know there's all kinds of people saying, well, listen, Biden is already gone. And, I'd have a hard time, arguing the fact that in U.S. history, there has never been a president who has been as absent as Biden. That being said, when you look at the end of verse 26 that was talking about Trump, it's clearly said that he appeared no more. Therefore, Trump cannot, if he was the 45th president who's sworn into office, and then the 47th president who's sworn into office, how can the end of 26 be correct, that he appears no more? When all of a sudden, in fact, he is the boomerang president who is both 45 and 47 and is set up, he's sworn in. That, it would violate this prophecy as it's written in my mind. And I know that some people say, the fact that it means sooner away than, that the second is sooner away than the first. There are people say, well, Trump is back, and so Biden is sooner away than Trump. But again, he's appearing again. And the prophecy specifically says that he cannot appear anymore. Now let's look at verse 28. This is explicitly talking about the next two feathers in the series after Biden. And I beheld, and lo, the two that remained thought also in themselves to reign. Okay, so they're thinking in themselves that they are going to be the next leaders of this country. Now, verse 29. And when they so thought, so this happens when they're thinking, behold, there awaked one of the heads that were at rest, namely it that was in the midst, meaning the middle, for it was greater than the other two heads. And then I saw that the other two heads were joined with it. And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the two feathers under the wings that would have reigned. That is, the language here, it's talking about these people, they're thinking in their hearts to be set up. If it's Trump, he can't be set up again because then he would appear again. And then while they are thinking in their hearts, they haven't been set up, they are devoured by the middle head of the eagle. And, it clearly says that the eagle reigns in the place of the others that would have, meaning that they were supposed to, but they never did. So that is why I am convinced and have been from the beginning that this is the absolute longest that Ezra Eagle can go out, in my opinion, as it's written. So let's talk about what is Ezra Eagle. in my mind, what does this prophecy even represent? Well, to me, this prophecy, it's a data point amongst many other data points. And I've got clusters of data points, and this the prophecy of Ezra's Eagle falls in line with the cluster of data points that speak of secret combinations in the last days. Specifically, I'm talking about in Ether chapter 8, when Moroni, he's writing about the fall of his own people. He's he's transcribing or summarizing, giving us essentially the footnotes on the Jaredites and what happened to them. And he says, listen, their civilization collapsed because of secret combinations. And then he says, well, let me just read. So this is Ether chapter 8, and I'm going to start in verse 23. Wherefore, O ye Gentiles. So he's clearly talking, he's saying, wherefore the United States of America. It is wisdom in God that these things should be shown unto you, that whereby ye may repent of your sins, and suffer not that these murderous combinations shall get above you, which are built up to get power and gain. And the work, yea, even the work of destruction come upon you, yea, even the sword of justice of the eternal God shall fall upon you to your overthrow and destruction, if ye suffer these things to be. Now, if you go into Doctrine and Covenants section 101, you have a parable of the United States. It's the Lord's chosen vineyard. And, that section talks about, the Constitution of this country being inspired by the Lord and set up for the freedom of the inhabitants of the land. But people come in and overthrow the vineyard because the watchmen on the tower are asleep at the job, and they totally corrupt it. And in order to redeem it, the Lord has to call his warriors from somewhere else to come in and purge that nation. So Ezra's Eagle is another data point in this universe of things. So now I'm going to read verse 24 in Ether chapter 8. Wherefore the Lord commandeth you, when ye shall see these things, meaning, listen, it's not if these things are going to come amongst you, it's they are, and you better wake up. And when you see these things, you better awaken to the awfulness of your situation. Listen to what he says. And when you see these things come amongst you, that ye shall awake to a sense of your awful situation, because of the secret combination which shall be among you, or woe be it because of the blood of them who have been slain. For they cry from the dust for vengeance upon it, and also upon those who have built it up. For it cometh to pass that whosoever buildeth it up seeketh to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries. So Moroni, who saw our day, is saying, listen, I know what's going to happen. And you're going to have this secret combination, and it's going to infiltrate your government. And when you see these things, you need to wake up and snap out of it and pray for deliverance, because you're not going to be able to deliver yourselves from this. So when I'm looking at Ezra's Eagle and I look at current events and the cabinet that Trump has picked, and how the deep state just absolutely cannot stand Trump. And I mean, he has essentially, the first time around, he had no idea. He was not a politician. He was relying on career political advisors, and he ended up with a cabinet full of, members from the, essentially the deep state running his cabinet. And this time around, he's going in with his eyes wide open and has selected people to lead, each of these cabinets who have actively been persecuted by the cabinets, but they will now be overseen. So you're, from the perspective of the deep state, this is a do or die kind of a situation. And so when I read Ezra's Eagle and I go, man, this seems to be exactly what this is talking about. And then when I go to other places, I mean, in Nephi, he talks about the whore of Babylon. He calls it the great and abominable church. and also he refers to it as the whore upon many waters. It's John who refers to it as the whore of Babylon. But Nephi saw the same things that John saw. And you just go and look in 1 Nephi chapter 14, beginning in verse 18, and you'll see that that is indeed true. So Nephi saw that this whore of Babylon, these secret combinations, were going to play a pivotal role in the last days. And that indeed the fall of this secret organization, which he spoke about in 1 Nephi 14:17, would be the sign that the Lord was about to restore the house of Israel in its entirety. So I'm thinking of that as another data point in this series. And then when John in Revelation chapter 17 is talking about the whore of Babylon that infiltrates all of the nations of the earth and enriches the leaders of the earth, but not the general populace. And they're in it for themselves, and they live deliciously at the expense of everyone else. And I cannot help but separate these, what Moroni is talking about, what John is talking about, what Nephi is talking about, and what Ezra spoke of in 2nd Esdras. So this is, when I view the prophecy of Ezra Eagle, I'm looking at it as a data point in this universe of data points. So again, with data points, if you read, if you have read a Remnant Shall Return, in the very first chapter of A Remnant Shall Return, I open that book, which is where I introduce everyone to Ezra's Eagle. That's the second chapter of that book. I open up with a scatter plot. I show these haze, all these different data points on this graph, and this haze of data points clearly has a pattern to it, and you can draw a line in that pattern. But each of those individual data points just tells part of a story. So what happens if Ezra's Eagle doesn't turn out the way that I think it is going to happen? If we come if Trump places his hand on that Bible and says the words and is sworn in my opinion, that's the cutoff date, because he's set up at that point. And if that happens, then I'm going to take Ezra's Eagle out of my little data set when it comes to secret combinations. And just because, it does come from the Apocrypha, and we're told that the Apocrypha is mostly correct. It's mostly translated correctly, but it does contain errors. And if there's errors in this translation, then who knows what it means. I do believe that it is talking about the United States of America, but has it been translated correctly? I have no idea. But all I can say is that based off of how it is written in the King James translation, if Trump is sworn in, it cannot be, my interpretation of it cannot be true. So if it's not true, then I would just toss that data point. But Ezra's Eagle is one of many, many, many data points. Now let's talk about what happens if Ezra's Eagle is true. And I am still terrified that it is. I wish that we could come to this point. We're only 8 days before the inauguration, and we could all just look at the state of the world and say, oh no, things are great. But things are not great, and there are many people that are terrified that there is something that's going to happen. There are whistleblowers that have come forward saying that there is going to be a terrorist attack on that day, and I'm terrified that there will be, and I pray that there won't be. But what happens, the worst case scenario, nobody wants this to happen, because it will mean that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people will lose their lives. What happens if Ezra's Eagle is true? And we have a catastrophic event that happens sometime before Trump would otherwise have been sworn in. Well, I can tell you that one thing that I would not do is go about trumpeting who the eagle head is. Because if people have not believed Ezra's eagle up to this point, they certainly aren't going to believe it anymore if you start adding names to these heads. And you have to ask yourself, what would it profit you to start calling out individuals by name? You're not going to convert anyone. You're not going to bring salvation to anyone by doing that. There is only downside to that. You could, find yourself in a very scary situation. So if Ezra's eagle turns out to happen, then you're certainly not going to see me posting YouTubes and condemning the eagle heads. And why is that? Is that because I am afraid of the deep state? I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. I trust in him, and in him my fear is swallowed up about these things. That being said, I have a family that I need to provide for, and again, no one benefits from that kind of a thing. And if you look at some of the things that Joseph Smith talked about right before he was martyred, one of the things that he said was that he wished that he had not named names in the secret combinations that were rising up against the church in the early days. And he said, listen, no one, I said exactly what I'm saying right now. I said, no one benefited by that. Nobody was saved. No one was baptized because I said so-and-so was, leading this group of mobsters and inciting violence against the saints. That didn't save anybody. But, well, then he went on and said, listen, when Christ was a boy, he couldn't defend himself. He didn't have the physical strength. If there was an adult that, came in to, physically attack him, he couldn't defend himself against the adult because he was, a little boy. That doesn't mean to say that the Lord couldn't, have sent down a lightning bolt and struck whoever it is, but I'm, certain that would have happened. But what, Joseph's whole point in telling that story was that the church is like Jesus was when he was a little boy. The church can't defend itself against these kinds of attacks, and neither can we. Not against the deep state, not against the secret combinations. If they can, kill Jeffrey Epstein in a secure jail cell without anybody saying boo, then they can do whatever they want. So if Ezra Eagle turns out to be true, then what does it mean? Well, it means that things are kicking off, and we had better get our lives in order. And if there are things, weaknesses that you are struggling with in your life, you have got to get them under control. If Ezra Eagle doesn't pan out, then maybe we've got some more time. That's not saying you don't need to work on bettering yourself, but I think that if Ezra Eagle happens, then it is to me it is the ultimate red herring that we are about to embark in a very challenging time period, the most challenging time period of this country's history. And things will only get worse from this point until, the Lord restores the house of Israel. And, that will be marvelous. And, I look forward to that day. And I know that there's many people that, share my, exhilaration at the thought of the entire house of Israel being restored and Zion being established once more upon the American continent, and wickedness being done away and the righteous from throughout the world being gathered in. Those are exciting things, and in my mind, that's what Ezra Eagle is really all about. And you read the prophecy itself; it is a a timeline. It's a countdown to this event where, the nation would be, overtly run by these three eagle heads, which, in my opinion, are individuals. They are not the three branches of the government. They, at least the way that I have interpreted and have always interpreted it to be, they're people, they're men, three individual men. The first one will be the most powerful, and he will immediately, go to war if this is true, and if there is some sort of terrorist attack. And I say terrorist attack, then you will see that the words of that prophecy say that he will, have the rule over the world more than any of the other rulers before him, with much oppression. So I think that we will see, what the world has been seeing going on in Gaza will be nothing compared to what we will see across the Middle East, and I suspect in Iran specifically. But again, this is, we do not have to wait long. It's a couple of days, and I know that many of you are very concerned about this, and I think I can't help but think about in the Book of Mormon, when Samuel the Lamanite gave the signs that were going to happen, one of which was it had an expiration date. I mean, he said, hey, within 5 years, you're going to have a day and a night and a day with no darkness. And, there, apparently was some, disputations amongst the people as to how that time period should have been calculated, because there were lots of people saying, listen, it's been 5 years. And, if you read that, there were lots of saints that said that they were exceedingly sorrowful, thinking that they might have believed in something that wasn't true. And I cannot help but see the parallels here, for so many people that have taken this prophecy and read it for themselves, and like I do, I absolutely believe that this is going to happen. I'm terrified about it. I hope that it doesn't. But everything else in this prophecy, as I have interpreted it, has lined up. So if this doesn't happen, it will be the first thing that doesn't line up. So yeah, I believe that it's going to happen, and I'm worried about the state of the country afterwards. And again, if these things do happen, if the worst happens, then just treasure these things in your heart. Don't go to social media proclaiming them. It's not going to convert anyone. You can share these things with friends and family, but or in a more general sense, outline, but don't start pointing fingers at people and condemning people. That is absolutely the worst and most idiotic, stupid thing that you could do. Also, don't join into the crowds that, if such a thing happened, go and grab their guns and start, going to war against, the eagle heads. I mean, that's ridiculous. You need to be a disciple of Christ, which means that you realize that vengeance is the Lord's and that He will repay. You're not His. He hasn't asked you to go and take these people on by yourself. In fact, John explicitly stated that when these events happen, speaking of the rise of the Antichrist in the last days, and when the saints are overcome, that the saints must of necessity be patient, and remember that those that live by the sword will die by the sword. So these are my thoughts on this as we draw near. Again, this is one data point that I pray that I can throw out. um, and that we get to see 4 years of President Trump. I know that there are many people out there that do not like him. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I just couldn't do it. But I voted for him this last time, and I just honestly I was astounded by the things that he did in his first term. I don't care if this makes some people upset or not. I'm amazed with his cabinet picks. I think that the next 4 years, if he's sworn in, will be absolutely awesome. I would love, and I hope and pray that I can see those years, because I honestly believe that he can take a situation that seems to be totally lost and turn it around in ways that would be unbelievable. And I think that it would be so fun and so awesome as a family of patriotic Americans to see America transform. Once could have been a fluke, but transforming it a second time would just be absolutely stunning, and I think that it would absolutely change the world, and the world would be a far better place. And I know I'm probably making lots of people mad, but the way that what really changed my mind about Trump is you can learn a lot about people from their enemies, and who are Trump's enemies. Are they the good, righteous, exemplars of Christ-like discipleship? I'm not saying that Trump's life choices make him the an exemplar of what it means to be a Christian, but the deep state absolutely hates him and has done everything in their power to obliterate him. And to my utter shock, absolutely nothing that they have done has worked against him. And it's just astounding to me. And so, I tend to think of it now, there's all these atrocious and horrific things that, if they're true, I mean, they're horrible. But, in light of who is running the press now, it's kind of like if you were living in America, in ancient America, during the time when the Gadianton robbers had infiltrated the government, and they were running it, but they were still using the apparatus of the government. Everything was a conspiracy theory at that point. There were many people, I'm sure, amongst the Nephites that just simply could not accept that the government had been infiltrated. And I'm sure that the Gadiantons had control of the press, and that all of the news that was going out belittled the prophets and persecuted the saints. And I see the same things happening today. And if you can't see them, then this isn't about politics. I think you're blind. Honestly, I'm a registered independent, and I think that this is so. I mean, Trump has got two key cabinet members that are Democrats, or that were Democrats in the very recent past. Who show me a Democratic president that has appointed Republicans or even independents to very prominent cabinet positions. Has never happened to the degree that we're seeing it happen now. So these are my thoughts on the matter. Again, I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope that we all get to see America made great again. But if not, if I am unfortunately correct, and my interpretation of Second Esdras turns out to be spot on, then be wise. Don't be an idiot. You can't really defend yourself against the deep state. You just cannot. And you know, you're not going to get a whole lot of extra credit points for denouncing something that you can't do anything about, and then being hauled off somewhere as a radical domestic terrorist, and leave your family without someone to provide for them. That's ridiculous. If this is true and it plays out the way that I am worried that it will play out, then we do know that the Lord has a plan. And so just sit back and behold the arm of God be unfolded before all the nations, and it will be incredible to witness. So I guess what I'm saying is we are in for some incredible days, one way or another. If Ezra Eagle turns out to fall flat, then we are I am incredibly excited for the next 4 years. I think it will be amazing, and frankly, for the years that come after that. And if it turns out to be true, then let's treasure some of these things in our hearts, and share them with our friends and families. But let's not try to be heroes, because let's be honest, Ezra Eagle isn't going to convert anyone. The doctrines, the life-changing doctrines of Jesus Christ change people's hearts and minds. But what it may do is it may make people that were far more skeptical to be more open. And on the flip side, if Ezra Eagle turns out to not be true, it may make people a lot more cynical and jaded, and frankly less prepared for the coming events by just throwing all data points out the window because one data point was wrong, or at least interpreted incorrectly by me. So friends, let's have each other in our prayers as we are coming up on this on the 20th, and hope that we come through the 21st and have incredible days ahead for this country. But one way or another, there are incredible days ahead for the righteous, for those that will seek to know the will of the Lord in their lives and make that their priority, and seek to hear and understand the Lord. And if you're doing those things, you can do what other Wordland said, come what may, and love it. So I guess those will be my closing remarks, friends. We don't know what's coming down in the next 8 days. If that's just the most awoke presidential cabinet in since the rise of the American deep state, then that will be phenomenal. And if not, then we're just gonna have to grin and bear it for a while, and we're gonna have to support one another, and we're going to have to trust that the Lord has a plan, and He clearly does. There are too many independent data points that line up and demonstrate that there is something to this, even if some of the data points have been interpreted incorrectly, or even if all of the data points are not exactly right. When we're in the I work in the private equity world, and in the private equity world, we talk about things being directionally correct. And you have these data points, and even if they're not individually all correct, they're pointing in the right direction. They are directionally correct, and that's oftentimes what you need to go by. What is directionally correct? And I think that we are in for some very exciting days, and let's pray for this country. I know that it is a land of promise. I know that the Lord has made covenants over this land, and that if we will turn to him, those covenants will be realized in our own lives, even if our neighbors turn their backs on those covenants. We don't have to, and we can have them fulfilled in our own lives. All right, friends, God bless America, and God bless each and one of you as you seek to draw nearer to the Lord and to hear him in your lives. Until next time, God bless.